dream of retirement and what we'll do when that day finally arrives, and we have all the time in the world to tick off that bucket list. But there's no guarantee that we'll even make it to retirement. We can spend our years dreaming, planning, and talking about it, or we can throw caution to the wind and just do it. Why just live for the weekend? We have every single day for adventures. We're Chris and Amy. My dream was to hit the road as a van lifer and visit every state in the lower 48.
My dream was to buy a sailboat, be a pirate, and fish every day. So how do we choose which to do?
We didn't. We're doing it all and more. Join us while we chase 72 degrees in search of the best coffee, beer, food trucks, epic sunsets, bike trails, and fishing this country has to offer. We may even bring along some friends. Repairs complete, it was time to get back on the road. Our first stop was in Roanoke to visit Teague. Chris picked up his new bike at Cardinal Bikes in Roanoke and was ready to put some miles on it. Roanoke has a really nice trail system and you can bike anywhere you need to go.
Teague took us on a bike ride around the city. One of our highlights was the Pinball Museum and Starcade Arcade, where we spent hours playing our favorite games. Admission was $15 a day, with no quarters needed. Spent a couple of days as a turd buster in training with Teague. We squirted some turds and we pimped his turd wagon.
After a bowl of chili at the Texas Tavern, we said goodbye to Teague. Next stop is our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. We stayed in a campground in Maryland and took the bus from the campground to the subway to get in and around the city. We visited the National Archives, the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, the Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, and happened upon the Memorial Day Parade as we were heading back to the subway.
We made a couple stops in Kent Island, Maryland, and Newark, Delaware, before driving through Amish country in Pennsylvania. We made it to New York. As we were driving into Watkins Glen from the south, we could see Montour Falls from the road, and it is gorgeous. That one's cool.
5 minutes away is Watkins Glen State Park. There are several hiking trails. We did the 1.5 mile Gorge Trail. It weaves through the gorge with a waterfall at every turn. This park closes in the winter from early November to mid-May, so be sure to plan around that. Watkins Glen sits on Seneca Lake, one of the beautiful Finger Lakes. We did the wine trail. The views and the wine slushies were amazing.
Letchworth State Park was our next stop. We camped here for a few days while I ran wires to connect the solar panels to the solar charger. I bought the panels from Buffalo Solar and installed the panels on the roof in the Home Depot parking lot. By the time we rolled out of the park, our solar was set up. The solar was enough for everything except for the AC, which we didn't really need very much since we were chasing the perfect temperatures. Amy wants me to make a separate video about the solar. I'm no expert, but we have lived off pretty much solar for probably last 8 months. So that'll be coming soon.
This next one is in my top 10 favorite hikes. It's a little more than a mile out and back trail near Orchard, New York. At the end of the hike, you reach the Eternal Flame. It's a small natural gas spring that has been lit and burns behind the waterfall.
I'm blowing up the boat.
You can't take a trip to this part of New York State and not see Niagara Falls. The power of the water is humbling. After seeing the falls during the day, we biked the Gorge Trail, then hit the Anchor Bar, home of the Buffalo Chicken Wing. We had Genesee beer and chicken wing pizza while we waited for nightfall.
Niagara Falls at night is a completely different experience than during the day. I regret not going to Canada's side, but it was late and we were on bikes and it was raining.
We made our way back through Pennsylvania and into Ohio. We spent a couple of days at Geneva on the lake. Next stop was Hocking Hills State Park. This rivals any national park I've been to, and so glad we were able to fit the stop in. Oh, sorry. Outer Belt Brewing is a harvest host, so we stopped in for the night. We played trivia, and Chris went around with the punching bag.
Basketball.
I'm getting up there, but I ain't gonna do it. I was actually close to getting me.
When we find unusual things along the way, we call it weird roadside shit. This half-acre concrete cornfield in Dublin, Ohio is definitely weird roadside shit.
We stayed at Vandale Drive-In in the Midpoint, Ohio. This was one of Amy's favorite spots. We watched Twister while sitting in the middle of a windy field.
Our only stop in Indiana was to Indiana Sand Dunes National Park. This was one of our least favorite stops since we drove way out of the way to visit. It was just a crowded beach in the middle of nowhere. We finally arrived in Michigan. I honestly had considered skipping Michigan because what is worth seeing in Michigan? Turns out a lot.
First stop, Henry Ford Museum. There was a Model T that shows every part used to make it, from planes to trains to automobiles, guns, turbines, and tractors. There was so much to see. You can easily spend a day here.
If you want to see more, like and subscribe.